Rain, and a sentence that stops him. London rain came down like a decision. It snapped against glass and stone, turned the pavement oily, smeared the yellow of taxis and the red of buses into streaks that seemed to move even when the traffic stopped. Adrian Cole stood outside the Bank of England with his phone buzzing and his jaw locked. The FCA email glowed on the screen like a wound. Notice of intention to suspend Lumen pays license pending review. 3 days to respond. 72 hours. He read it twice and then again, as if repetition might bend reality. In his ear, the city hummed, sirens far off, a bus braking, a shopkeeper dragging down a metal shutter. In his chest, the soft, steady punch of a heart that had learned to keep time even when it didn't know why. "You're standing like the rain is your fault," a small voice said. He turned. Under the narrow awning of a shuttered cafe sat a girl with a backpack, a paper cup in both hands, and eyes like wet glass. 7, maybe 8. A blue cardigan frayed at the cuffs. Her trainers were scuffed to gray. The cafe's lights were off. A handwritten sign on the door said, "Back in 15." The clock in the window said 15 had been half an hour ago. "What did you say?" Adrian asked. "You're standing like the rain is your fault," she repeated. "My mum does that when she thinks the bills are her fault, but the rain just does what it wants." He looked at his phone, then up at the awning, then at her again. "Do you live nearby?" "We live near the canal," she said, "but my mum's here. She finishes at 6 and comes out at 6:05, and we walk to the bus, and if it rains, we run." The cafe door stayed closed. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amira," she said. "What's yours?" "Adrian, you look rich," she said matter-of-factly. "But not happy." He almost smiled and found that the part of him that remembered how had to look around for the instructions. "It's a complicated night," he said. "Would you like some hot chocolate while you wait for your mum?" "I would," she said, "if it's the proper kind." "The powder kind tastes like chalk." "I'll find the proper kind," Adrian said. There was a kiosk still open across the road. He ran through the rain, returned with a paper cup that steamed and a second cup for himself. On the way back, he pulled off his black scarf. "You can borrow this," he said. She looked at it. "You'll be cold." "I'm already cold," he said. She took the scarf solemnly, wrapped it twice around her neck until only her eyes showed above the wool. She sniffed the chocolate, sipped, and let out a sigh that sounded older than she was. Behind them, the city kept deciding things. "How long have you been waiting?" he asked. "Since 5:50, Amira said. "Mum said she might be a bit late because the manager is cross about the coffee beans. He says she uses too many." Adrian checked his watch. It was 6:20. He glanced again at the locked door at the dark cafe at the empty street beyond. "I can wait with you," he said. "You have rain to fix," she said. He laughed. "It won't mind if I'm late." The phone buzzed again. Marcus, his CFO, another buzz. Priya. The board chat filled with variations of alarm. Adrian put the phone face down on the windowsill and watched the drops gather on the awning and then slip fat and clear into the flood of the night. After a while, Amira said, "You breathe like my mum when she counts coins." "How do I breathe?" "Like it hurts." He looked at the empty cup in his hand. "I got a letter from some people who can stop my work," he said. "They think we did something wrong." "Did you?" she asked, not accusatory, simply curious. "I don't think so." "Then you should tell them that," she said. "When my teacher says I forgot my homework and I didn't, I tell her I didn't. She says, prove it, and I do." The cafe door stayed closed. Behind the counter, through the gap in the blinds, a single emergency light glowed in the back. No movement, no silhouettes. "Amira," he said, gentle, "do you have a number for your mum?" She pulled a paper from her backpack, folded over 4 times. She handed it to him with the same solemnity with which she had accepted the scarf. The paper was a crumpled rhoda with Sana K, circled in purple pen. A mobile number was written underneath. Adrian dialed. It rang and then went flat. He called the cafe. No answer. A car rolled to the curb 2 doors down, a black saloon that belonged on a brochure. The passenger window slid down and a man spoke into a phone. He wore a suit that fitted like a sentence with no spare words. He spoke fast, the way people speak when they think no one is listening. "Wire to GB 29, Luma 42, 3167, 8406. Yes, the shell before morning." He paused, listened, then said, "Push memo, Ghost Ledger Q13, they panic by Tuesday. We buy Friday." Adrian felt his gut tighten at the first four characters. GB29, the start of an IBAN. Luma like Lumen. Ghost Ledger. Q13, the window zipped up. The car slid away like an eel. Amira sipped her chocolate. "What did he say?" Adrian asked, trying to sound like someone who wasn't suddenly awake. "He said wire to GB29, Luma 4231678406, Amira said, same cadence, unhurried. "Ghost Ledger Q13. They panic by Tuesday. We buy Friday." He said it fast so nobody would hear, but I heard. Adrian stared at her. "How did you remember that?" She frowned. "It's numbers. Numbers are easy, and Ghost Ledger is a silly thing to say so it sticks." The door behind the cafe counter swung in her reflection, then silence again. "What's Ghost Ledger?" she asked. "It's either a very bad joke," Adrian said, "or a very bad plan." He picked up his phone. The screen glared. "Priya, call me now. Marcus, where are you?" He looked at the scarf around Amira's throat and the way she sat up straighter against the cold. "I'll stay until your mum comes back," he said. "That's a promise." "Grown-ups say promise like it's a word," she said, mistrusting the air a little. "In year 2, if you promise, you have to cross your heart." He crossed his heart with one finger, feeling foolish and then feeling better. She nodded. "Okay, now you can use the word." 2 calls and a door that refuses to open. They waited 10 more minutes, then 20. The rain slackened to a beat that felt less like a decision and more like a rhythm. Adrian tried the cafe number again. Still nothing. A key scraped in the side alley door. A boy in a green apron, 17, acne, a bad haircut, poked his head out, blinked at Adrian, then at Amira. "She's not here," he said quickly. "Sana, she fainted an hour ago. They took her to St. Bartholomew's." Amira stood up so fast her cup tipped. "Is she okay?" The boy shrugged badly, ashamed of it. "The manager told everyone to keep working. He said it would sort itself." "I was supposed to call, but he said it was not my problem." Adrian stared at him. "What is your manager's name?" The boy blushed. "Colin, but he says to tell customers." "Thank you," Adrian said, already moving. "Amira, do you know where St. Bart's is?" She nodded. "It's the big one by the roundabout with the smell like lemon and hands." "Come on," he said. "I'll take you." "We have to pay the bus," she said, glancing at the timetable reflexively. "I have a car around the corner," he said, then realized how that sounded. "You'll sit in the back. I'll call the hospital on the way, and if at any point you want me to call someone else, a teacher, a neighbor, tell me." She looked at his scarf, at his crossed heart, at the way he said the word promise like it had weight. She nodded. "Okay," she said, "but I'm bringing the scarf." "It's my lucky now." He found that he didn't mind that at all. St. Bartholomew's emergency department smelled like lemon and hands, just as Amira said. A triage nurse found Sana in a curtained bay, dehydrated, fainted, blood pressure all wrong. A chest infection rattling through lungs, exhausted by coffee steam and cleaning chemicals and London nights. "She'll need to stay a couple of days," the nurse said. "Do you have someone to watch Amira?" Amira had already reached through the gap and found her mother's fingers. Sana's eyelids fluttered. She looked young and very old. She saw her daughter, then saw the scarf, then saw the man holding the curtain, and fear and gratitude flowed into the same look. "I'm Adrian," he said. "I was waiting with her. I can stay." A social worker appeared as if conjured by the word. "I'm Tanya," she said. "We'll need to talk about tonight, where Amira sleeps, food, school in the morning." Sana tried to sit up. The monitor beeped and the nurse said, "No." "I can take her," Adrian said. "Just for tonight. I'll bring her in the morning. Whatever you need me to sign, I'll sign. I'll give you every number." Tanya studied him. "And you are?" "Adrian Cole," he said, suddenly aware he was wearing a watch that cost more than the cafe's weekly takings. "I run a company down the road. The FCA sent us a letter. I'm not thinking very well." Amira tugged his sleeve. "He gave me his scarf," she told Tanya, as if this were the crucial credential. Tanya's mouth almost smiled. "Let's do this properly," she said briskly. She took out a form on a clipboard, filled in names. "Sana, do you consent to Amira staying with Mr. Cole for tonight? We can do a short-term placement while you're admitted." Sana's gaze slid between her daughter and the man with the damp hair who looked like he hadn't slept since last week. "Yes," she whispered, "just tonight, just until morning." Amira squeezed her hand. "I'll bring you the scarf tomorrow," she said. "No," Sana said, a hint of the old jest rising. "You keep the lucky, bring me the girl." On the way out, Adrian called Priya and then Marcus. He explained too much and too little. I'm heading to HQ, he finished. Tanya's going to stop by to look at my flat, then I'm going to trace something called a ghost ledger and an IBAN that starts with GB29. He heard Priya inhale. Who said those words? A girl who doesn't forget them, he said. Do we have any customers with IBANs that start GB29 Luma? Wait, Priya said, fingers already flying in his imagination. We have a dormant entity named Loomer Reserves that never went live. Only Treasury has access. Nobody should be wiring anything there. Marcus came on the line. Adrian. We need to align on comms before morning. Align this, Adrian said, too tired to choose a different verb. He told them about the Black Saloon and the phrase and the way the man had said, "We buy Friday," like a plan that had already happened. There was a silence that wasn't disbelief, just calculation. I need the logs, Priya said. Payments, code, documents, and if anyone in our orbit has used the phrase Q13 in the last month. On it, Marcus said. And Adrian? Yes, you did the right thing with the girl, he said. I'll tell facilities to open the top floor. Tanya can look. We'll make sure Amira has a bed. Adrian exhaled and felt a little less like the rain was his fault. Night on the top floor and a promise that becomes a plan, the penthouse flat that the company kept for late emergencies and early mornings, looked like a magazine had guessed what a human might need and then hired glass to arrange it. Tanya made a quick sweep, locks, fridge, smoke alarms, a second bedroom that had fresh sheets and a window that looked over roofs and rain. Amira wandered to the window and pressed her breath against it until it fogged. She drew a triangle, then another triangle, then a line. That's the bridge, she said. 2 triangles and a line. Tower Bridge, Adrian said. I used to count the lamps when I was little. If I got a different number each time, I told myself the city was alive. It is, Amira said. It's just tired. There was pasta in the cupboard and tomatoes soft enough to give without a fight. Adrian cooked badly, burned the edges, and found that Amira ate as if the day had folded air around her meals. She kept looking at the door, then at the scarf, then at him. Will we see Mum in the morning? She asked. Yes, he said immediately. We'll go before school. We'll bring her a proper cup of tea. Tea is a hug in a cup, Amira said. Mum says that. He made a mental note to write hug on a post-it next to Q13. After dinner, while Tanya finished paperwork at the counter, Adrian opened his laptop and let Priya take over his screen. She was all tied hair and precise sentences and so very awake. I found references to Q13 in the code repository, she said, sharing a window full of lines that looked like a language someone had invented in a hurry. It's a flag, a test harness that can mark a transaction as ghosted in a sandbox so we can run reconciliation drills without moving money. It should never be accessible outside a lab. It was patched in last year and then sealed. Who unsealed it? Adrian asked. According to this, no one, she said, but according to how reality works, someone. The IBAN, he asked. Priya pulled up a dashboard. GB29 Luma 42 31 67 8406. Exists on our back end on paper only. It's never been used, until last night when something tried to cue a wire to it. The attempt failed because the account isn't real. But the memo field on the attempt was Ghost Ledger Q13, whoever did it typed the phrase. Adrian felt the hairs on his arms lift. So someone staged a fake transaction to look like internal fraud. And then told an FCA contact it existed, Priya said. Because this notice we got tonight, it cites concerns originating from a credible report of internal reconciliation failures. Which is exactly what Q13 would suggest to someone who didn't know it was a test flag. Who would have access to file that report? He asked. Priya pursed her lips. Someone at a consultancy used by the regulator, or an external who wants to be helpful, or a rival who wants to trigger a panic, Adrian said, thinking of the black car and the quiet, eager voice. We buy Friday? I'm calling a friend at one of the big banks, Priya said. If a wire with that memo field left any footprint, I want it, and I want metadata on the FCA report. If we get PDF originals, we can see the author, the timestamp, when it was really created. Do it, Adrian said. And Priya, thank you, she nodded. Don't thank me, give me 2 hours and tell me you're still with the girl. He looked at Amira, who had fallen asleep with the scarf over her face like a curtain, a triangle of breath fogging it at the mouth. I am, he said. and felt the promise slide into his bones and lock there. He worked until the lines blurred and the rain was just sound, then closed the laptop and sat in the chair by the second bedroom and listened to a child breathe. And for the first time in months, he knew exactly why he was doing what he was doing. Boring places, and a number no one else noticed. They made tea in the morning in a mug with a crack that looked like a map. On the way to the hospital, Amira taught Adrian how her mum liked tea. Hot but not hot hot, she said. 1 sugar, stir 3 times, left, right, left. Noted, he said, solemn as a clerk. Sana looked better. The lemon and hand smell seemed less stern. She drank the tea and cried into it in a way that made the nurse pretend to check a monitor. "You're very kind," Sana said to Adrian when the monitor ceased to require attention. We need each other," he said, surprising himself. "I have a mess that needs truth. You have a daughter who carries truth in her pocket and takes it out without thinking. Let me help tonight and then you can decide what comes next." Sana's eyes moved from scarf to man to child and back like she was counting lamps on a bridge. She nodded once. "Tonight," she said. On the pavement outside, Amira said, "I can show you where the man with the voice was." They walked to the cafe. The manager was nowhere. The boy with acne nodded sheepishly. Amira tugged Adrian's sleeve and pointed to a spot next to a drainpipe where rain gathered in a circle like a coin. "He stood here," she said. "The car was there." "Can you say the number again?" Adrian asked. She did, in a steady rhythm, no hesitation. "GB 29 Luma 42 31 67 8406. "Did he say anything else?" Adrian asked. "He said tell Colin the girl will wait," Amira said, cheeks flushing slightly. "I think he meant me, but I'm not a thing to be told." "No," Adrian said, the word a small, hard stone. "You aren't?" At the office, Priya was waiting with a printout and eyes that said she'd slept with her laptop under her pillow. Marcus stood beside her with the expression of a man who had spent his career building solid things and now found the ground soft. "Bank of Greater London responded," Priya said, slapping down the printout. "A wire with that exact IBAN prefix attempted to route through a correspondent last night. It was rejected because the target account is a non-live internal ID, but the attempt originated at a shell, Dane Capital Logistics." "Victor Dane," Marcus said, as if the name tasted bad. Adrian looked from one to the other. He tried to move money into a debt account to create the appearance of internal fraud. "He tried to move the shadow of money," Priya said, "enough to whisper ghost ledger into someone's ear and let the word do the rest." "Can we tie him to the FCA report?" Adrian asked. Priya lifted another page. "The report came in via a consultancy. We subpoenaed the file's metadata. It lists the author as V. Daynat, and the creation date is yesterday morning, 12 hours before our notice. The timestamp on the email to the FCA is 5 minutes after the black saloon that Amira saw pulled away from the curb." Marcus made a sound like a tire finding glass. "He filed the complaint before the panic existed. Or he created both," Priya said. Adrian felt the strange click of pieces that had always been there finding the right order. "We're going to the FCA tomorrow," he said. "We'll ask for an emergency session today. We'll bring this." Marcus shifted. "The board's already nervous. Share price slid 8% at open. Dane is offering a rescue investment at a discount. Some directors are tempted." "Tell the board I'll resign before I sell to a man who plants fires," Adrian said. "I'll tell them," Marcus said. "They'll ask if you have proof strong enough to keep the regulator at bay." Amira raised her hand like it was school. Everyone looked at her because she was a person and because she had become, quite without trying, the axis around which things turned. "Boring places," she said. "My teacher says important things hide in boring places because nobody looks there, but we looked there." Priya smiled. "We did." Adrian bent to Amira. "Can I keep your scarf while we go to the FCA?" he asked impulsively. "It seems to be lucky." She considered, then unwound it carefully and laid it around his neck like a child knighting a knight. "You have to bring it back," she said. "I will," he said. "That's a promise." The hearing where truth has to queue like everyone else. Canary Wharf on a weekday morning looked like someone had put a suit on a river. Glass everywhere, tides of people, a sky that threatened rain and then changed its mind. The FCA hearing room had the calm of a chapel and the furniture of a bank. Sir Malcolm Wren sat at the center like a man who had seen every kind of story and preferred the kind that came with evidence. To his left, Helen Briggs with a legal pad and a pen she clicked when anyone said innovative too often. To his right, a junior panelist who didn't yet know that the world was mostly people doing their best and sometimes not. Victor Dane entered like a man arriving for a haircut he had decided not to pay for. He wore confidence the way a cat wears sunlight. He nodded at Adrian as if he had lent him something once. Helen began. We are here on an emergency basis to determine whether LumenPay's license should be suspended pending investigation. The FCA received a report of internal reconciliation failures. LumenPay disputes the report and alleges bad faith from an external party. Adrian stood. He did not look at Victor. He looked at Sir Malcolm, whose eyes said, "This is your time, makes sense." Yesterday at 7:12 p.m., we received notice of a potential shutdown, Adrian said, steady. At 6:40, an attempt was made to wire funds to an internal non-live account labeled Loomer Reserves with the memo Ghost Ledger Q13. The attempt was rejected. 30 minutes later, a complaint was filed with the FCA alleging a ghost ledger anomaly at our firm. The author of the PDF is listed in metadata as VDane at. He slid the printouts across. Priya projected the logs. Marcus, hands folded, did the thing CFO do when they let numbers do the talking. Victor spoke next. His voice was smooth glass. We invest across the sector. We heard from multiple sources that LumenPay's controls were lax. We filed a good faith report. If Mr. Cole wishes to spin that into a conspiracy, that is his narrative. But I caution the panel, the company also appears to have allowed non-employees, including a minor child, on restricted floors, compromising the integrity of any evidence. Objection to innuendo, Helen said crisply. We're not in a courtroom, Mr. Dane, and even if we were, this is sloppy. Sir Malcolm raised one eyebrow. Mr. Cole, is there any relevance to a minor in your presentation? Adrian glanced at the back row where Amira sat between Tanya and Priya, legs swinging, scarf missing because it was around Adrian's throat. He had told her she wouldn't have to speak. He would not bring a child into the ring unless the world demanded it. There is, he said. In this sense, a girl waiting for her mother heard a man recite an IBAN and the phrase Ghost Ledger Q13 before our notice arrived. Her recall led us to the bank's log of the attempted wire, which led us to the shell company used to generate the appearance of internal fraud. Is the child here? Sir Malcolm asked, not unkindly. She is, Adrian said. Her name is Amira. She will not be a witness. She is a person the world tried to use. And she is the reason we looked where we needed to look. Victor smiled with half his mouth and shook his head, as if saddened by the theatrics of those who lacked substance. The panel will not take testimony from a minor, Sir Malcolm said evenly, but the chain of evidence stands or falls on its own. Miss Briggs, Helen clicked her pen. The metadata is compelling, the bank log is solid. Mr. Dane, do you have an explanation for why your email address appears as the author of a report you claim was generated by multiple sources? Victor's lawyer, who had thus far played the role of expensive furniture, stood. We have reason to believe the document Miss Briggs holds is not the final version filed. The author field persists across versions unless deliberately scrubbed, Priya said, not bothering to hide the disdain. Victor shrugged delicately. We have nothing to hide. Then you won't mind us issuing a preservation notice on your servers, Helen said. And if we find the ghost ledger language originated with you, you won't mind being referred to the Serious Fraud Office. Victor's mouth thinned. A panelist asked Adrian a question about internal controls. He answered, not defensive, not pleading. He explained the concept of a sandbox to people who managed capital but did not write code, and why Q13 belonged in a lab and not in a rumor. He explained how panic isn't a fact, it's a tool, and how you can sell it by the yard to anyone who wants a discount. When they broke for a short recess, Adrian went to the corridor where the glass looked like frozen water. Amira stood on tiptoe and pressed her nose to it, fogging a small circle and drawing an inside it. Are we in trouble? She asked. Less than we were, he said. You're breathing better, she observed. I forgot to breathe for about a year, he said. I'm relearning. She took his scarf in one hand and held it like a leash to remind him that he belonged to something now, the part where everything nearly comes apart. Reporters waited outside the building like weather. The board called twice. Marcus dealt with them both times, speaking in clinical present tense. Priya went back to HQ to pull a data extract that the panel had requested. Adrian stood with Tanya and Amira in the atrium and let the air move around him until it felt like it had permission to be air. A security guard approached. "Mr. Cole," he said, "there's a gentleman asking for you. He says it's urgent. He says he's here to deliver a document that will help." "It's always men with documents," Tanya murmured. The gentleman was not gentle. He was a courier with a padded envelope and a signature line. Inside the envelope was a printer's proof of a newspaper front page. LumenPay license suspended, CEO steps down. The date was tomorrow. The quote attributed to a source close to the board said the decision had been made to protect consumers. Marcus arrived, breathless, carrying a USB stick and the certainty of a man who hates surprises. "We've lost a packet," he said. "The email with the bank's confirmation has vanished from both our outbox and Priya's. Someone accessed her account." Adrian felt the old panic try to climb his spine. He closed his eyes, opened them, and found Amira watching him like he was a tightrope walker and she had a string. "Boring places," she said. "What?" he asked, halfway to drowned. "Important things hide in boring places," she repeated patiently. "If it's gone from the shiny place, it's in the boring one. Mum keeps the rent money in the biscuit tin because burglars like drawers." Marcus swore softly. "Server logs," he said. "Backups, the send mail queue." They ran. Amira trotted to keep up, scarf tails flapping. In a side room with carpets that hushed feet, Priya already had 3 windows open like 3 stubborn doors. "Found it," she said, jabbing a key. The send mail demon retained a spooled copy. The bank's header shows DKIM verified. "And look," she brought up a table. "Access to my mailbox from an IP range registered to Dane Capital Logistics." Marcus laughed in disbelief. He hacked the narrative and left his name on the door. "Arrogance is sloppy," Priya said. She copied the logs to 3 places. She printed a hard copy. She wrote a note on the hard copy like a person from the last century, because people from the last century understood that paper sometimes was the only thing you could trust. When they returned to the hearing room, Victor was finishing a soliloquy about innovation and public trust. Sir Malcolm looked like a man who tolerated art but preferred math. Priya set the paper on the table. "We found the missing email," she said. She passed up the server log and the record of who attempted to remove it. Sir Malcolm Reed, Helen Reed, Victor did not look. The junior panelist forgot to breathe. "I move," Helen said before anyone could set up their next lie, "that we deny the suspension request, institute enhanced monitoring instead, and refer Mr. Dane and any associated parties to the SFO for investigation into market manipulation and false reporting." Sir Malcolm tapped his pen. "Agreed," he said. He looked at Victor, whose mouth was now neutral. "We will expect your full cooperation." Victor smiled the way a man smiles when the dentist tells him to open wider. A choice, a foundation, and a scarf that knows where it lives. The board tried to stage a coup and failed because numbers matter more when they make sense than when they shout. The newspaper changed its headline. LumenPay license safe rival investor faces fraud probe. The comments were terrible because comments are terrible, but the markets liked the smell of honesty and the stock found its feet. At St. Bart's, Sana sat up and called Amira her astronaut because she had gone somewhere strange and come back with oxygen. "How long do you need to stay?" Adrian asked. 2 more nights, Sana said. "Then pills and rest and less trying to carry England on my back." "May I suggest a different job than 2 jobs?" he asked carefully. Sana snorted. "Does this suggestion come with rent?" "It comes with a salary," he said. "Facilities integrity. The person who keeps the building a place where people are safe, and it comes with flexibility. And an apartment 3 floors above the bakery with the good bread and the bad coffee." Sana swallowed something that looked like pride and tasted like relief. "I can pay something toward. You can pay in tea," he said. "Left, right, left, and by letting me and my company be part of Amira's life if that's what you want. As a friend, as a lighthouse maybe?" "A lighthouse?" Amira asked from the chair where she was building a tower out of medicine leaflets. A light that stays, Adrian said. Tanya appeared at the foot of the bed. We can write a short-term placement today so Amira can stay with Mr. Cole while you're discharged and settling, she said to Sana. And if you want a longer-term arrangement, we can talk next week. No rush, no pressure. Sana looked at her daughter. What do you think? Amira considered like a judge. He brings proper chocolate, she said, and he keeps promises. He also needs help remembering to breathe. I can do that. That sounds like consent to me, Tanya said, professional and amused. Lumen Pei announced a fellowship a week later. The Amira Khan Young Observers Fellowship, small grants for primary school libraries to buy magnifying glasses, notebooks, science kits, and books that teach kids to notice boring things. The logo was a lighthouse drawn from a picture Amira had made with 2 triangles and a line and light like a barcode. The day they unveiled the plaque in the lobby, rain came back as if it had never left. It brushed the glass. It threaded the air with invisible lines. Adrian and Amira stood on the rooftop garden under a tilted umbrella that did nothing but make them feel like they had made an effort. You still have my scarf, she said. I do, he said. Does that make me a thief? It makes you a person who knows where things live, she said. She took one end and looped it tighter so it sat right. Mum says sometimes things live with us for a bit and then they live somewhere else for a bit and then they find where they should be. The scarf knows. He looked over the roofs, the black gloss of the street, the buses that moved like red fish. Do you ever think about the man in the car? He asked. I think he will be bored in a very clean room with not many books, she said. That seems fair, he said. She tugged the scarf. See, she said, the rain isn't your fault, it helps the plants grow. He looked at the rosemary spilling over the planter, the mint that was trying to be mint despite London, the earth that held more water than it needed and still found a way to be ground. Thank you, he said. For what? She asked. For hearing the thing no one else heard, he said. For saying it out loud, for telling me how to breathe. She shrugged, 7 again. It was in a boring place, she said. People never look there, he laughed. Maybe we should teach them? We are, she said, pointing at the plaque. It has my name, that means I can boss the books. You can boss the books, he agreed. Behind them, the city kept deciding things. In front of them, rain threaded the air and stitched it to the moment, a knock-knock joke and a grace moment that Stick's life did not become a montage. It became mornings and afternoons and proper bedtimes. It became left-right, left tea and homework and Priya making a sign for the lab door that said in big letters, sandbox. Do not panic. It became Marcus showing Amira how to open a spreadsheet and Amira declaring after 3 minutes, this is like a biscuit tin for numbers. Sana came home after 3 nights. She walked slowly, breathed deeply, sat on the sofa like it had been waiting and slept with her face turned toward the kitchen because that was the room where problems became food. Victor Dane went very quiet while very loud people asked him to answer very simple questions. The newspaper that had printed the fake front page offered Adrian a profile. He declined. He had learned that attention was a currency you should not spend on people who were already rich in it. On a Thursday, Adrian found Amira sitting on the stairs with a book open on her lap and a look on her face he recognized from his own mirror, the one that says the day is heavier than the lift thinks. What's wrong? He asked, sitting on the step below her so they were not eye level but eye adjacent. In school, she said, a boy said my dad doesn't live with us and my mum works at night and we live in a flat with a lift that smells like a sausage so I must be poor. What did you say? Adrian asked. I said we have a scarf, she said. And then I said we have a person who makes tea left, right, left, and then I said we have a fellowship with my name on it in a boring building that makes money move to where it should go. And then I said, you don't know anything about anything, and Miss Hall said we should use indoor voices and practice kindness. He bit down on the answer that jumped to be first and chose another. Sometimes people say small things because their worlds are small, he said. Sometimes their worlds get bigger. She looked at him. Did your world get bigger? It did, he said. When the rain stopped and I saw I wasn't the only person under it, she grinned suddenly. Knock, knock, she said. Who's there? He asked, obedient. Iben, she said. Iben who? I ban bad men from using our numbers, she said, dissolving into laughter so pure he knew he would keep the sound like a stone in his pocket. Later, when the house was quiet, he stood at the sink and washed the 2 mugs they had used and thought about the way a promise can be an anchor and a kite string at the same time. He looked at the scarf on the back of the chair and decided it lived there now. The day the board apologizes and the night the city breathes 3 months turned like a page. The FCA monitoring reports were boring in the right way, and Priya framed the first one and hung it where the marketing awards used to be. The board apologized badly because boards apologize badly. Adrian accepted well because it cost him nothing and bought him peace. Sana started in facilities integrity. She wore a lanyard and a smile that only used half her mouth until it remembered how to use the whole. She was the person people told about the light bulbs that flickered and the doors that stuck and the way the big meeting room made a noise at night like a violin tuning itself. She fixed the things she could and gently annoyed the right people about the things she couldn't, which is a kind of fixing. Tanya came around once a week for a month to make sure the short-term placement made sense. It did. At the end of the month, she sat at the kitchen table with a form that said alternative carer registration, friend of family, and a pen that worked. "You can keep the arrangement as long as it works," she said. "You can change it when it doesn't. That's the grown-up bit." Sana signed. Adrian signed. Amira drew a lighthouse in the margin and Tanya pretended not to see. That night after dinner, after packing school bags, after a bedtime story about a cat who ate legalese and became a lion, Adrian went to the roof and watched the city breathe. He was not the rain's keeper. He was a man with a scarf and a story and a company that had remembered what it was for. His phone buzzed. A message from Priya, new fellowship applications. One boy wants to count the lights on Tower Bridge. He says he gets a different number each time. Adrian typed back, "Tell him the city is alive." He went downstairs. The scarf brushed his neck. The kettle clicked. From the bedroom, a small voice floated out, sleepy, mild, an epilogue. "You're breathing right," Amira said. "I had a good teacher," he said. Epilogue, a sentence returns with new weather months later. Spring finally convinced London it could try. The rain softened. The light found corners it had not been allowed to enter in winter. Lumen Pay held a small event in the lobby with too many biscuits and not enough chairs. They gave out the first Amira Khan Young Observers Fellowships to school librarians who had written about children who loved boring things. A photographer asked for a picture of the 3 of them. Adrian almost declined and then saw that this was not about vanity, it was about record. They stood under the plaque. Sana put an arm around her daughter. Amira held a magnifying glass like a scepter. After they walked outside because the city had decided to be kind for an hour. They stood where they had stood the first night, under the awning of the cafe, now under new management. A woman who said she would rather go without sleep than go without staff, and watch the rain do the thing rain does when it is sorry and wants to show you how things are made clean. "You're not standing like the rain is your fault," Amira observed. "It isn't," Adrian said. "It helps things grow," she said, tugging the scarf to make sure it knew where it belonged. "Will you always remind me?" he asked. She thought about it seriously. "Yes," she said, "if you always bring proper chocolate." "That's a promise," he said. She crossed her heart with one finger and he did the same, and then they walked, not because they had somewhere to be, but because walking is how you tell a city you are still here. Moral takeaway: truth often hides in boring places and speaks in small, clear voices. When power chooses to listen and stand beside the vulnerable, justice becomes possible, and families are found where promises are kept.